So many believe Yeshua fulfilled all the spring feast days. But I'm here to tell you, he didn't. This is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. Let's talk about it. Okay, let's just get right into it. Shavuot, what many call by its Greek reference, Pentecost, has not been fulfilled yet. Now you're probably thinking, but Steve, how can you say that? Acts chapter 2 clearly shows it was fulfilled. No, please listen. The second chapter of Acts was a deposit, not a fulfillment. Paul explained this multiple times, showing it was a deposit as a guarantee for the fulfillment. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 21 and 22. The Holy Spirit was given as a deposit. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 4 and 5. The Holy Spirit was given as a deposit. And Ephesians chapter 1, verses 13 and 14. The Holy Spirit was given as a deposit. We need to remember, Shavuot was the wedding covenant at Mount Sinai, seen here in Exodus chapter 24, verse 7. Shavuot, Pentecost, was the day when the people all said, "We will," to the covenant. And it was that same day the elders partook in the marriage supper with Yahweh, as seen here a few verses later. And what are we waiting for today? The marriage and marriage supper of the Lamb, found here in Revelation chapter 19, verses 6 through 9. The new covenant. And for those wondering, no, we are not in the new covenant yet. I know this is hard for some to hear, but please hear me out. The prophecy of the new covenant says this. It's seen here in Jeremiah chapter 31. It says, when the new covenant is in place, a man will no longer teach his neighbor, or a man his brother, saying, "Know Yahweh," because they will all know him, from the least of them to the greatest. As it is right now, we're still following Yeshua's last command to go out to all the nations to make disciples, thus telling people to know Yahweh. And Yeshua said this after his death and resurrection. Knowing Yeshua told the disciples to do this after his death and resurrection, this shows the new covenant hadn't come yet. He paved the way for the new covenant at his death and resurrection. Yes, but the new covenant doesn't come until the marriage on a future Shavuot. Right now, we're in Ketubah, which is Hebrew for the marriage engagement. Thus, we're waiting for the new covenant, the marriage covenant of the Lamb. That's what Shavuot represents, the marriage covenant. This is what we're still waiting for. Showing us what? On the grand scheme of things, we're currently between Passover and Pentecost. And I would suggest right on the edge of Shavuot. Yeshua died on Passover, placed in the grave at the start of unleavened bread, rose on first fruits, appeared to the disciples during the first 40 days to Shavuot, speaking about the kingdom. Then the Spirit was given as a deposit on Shavuot, Pentecost, as a guarantee of what's to come. So, what's to come? The resurrection, the marriage and marriage supper, the new covenant. So Shavuot has not been, how some like to say it, fulfilled. The time for that fulfillment was given a deposit. Again, we're now between Passover and Pentecost. One could say the first 40 days in counting to Shavuot was fulfilled by Yeshua because he was with his disciples throughout those first 40 days. Now this could lend credence to our last teaching, Resurrection Day, as to why we should be watching for the first 5 seals of Revelation to begin on the 41st day in the counting to Shavuot. Thus, Yeshua picks right back up where he left off. Many try to say the fall feast days are what represent Yeshua's return. While we see these days playing a major role for the Battle of Armageddon, these days represent the end of the millennium. All the feast days foreshadow the resurrections. You see, the three resurrections are all seen in the three harvests of the year. I'm talking the natural harvests of the year, the spring, summer, and fall. First fruits represents Yeshua's resurrection, the barley harvest at the first of the year. Shavuot represents the first resurrection, the believers at the first wheat harvest. Trumpets represents the second resurrection, the believers at the second wheat harvest, with the unbelievers for the grape harvest at the exact same season. Remember, everyone will be resurrected when all is said and done. This is seen here in 1 Corinthians 15:21 and 22. Yeshua fulfilled the first 3 holy days at his first coming. Shavuot will be fulfilled at his second coming with the first resurrection, matching the first wheat harvest. The last 3 will be fulfilled at the end of the millennium. Trumpets, the last resurrection. Again, the wheat and grape harvest at the same time. The Day of Atonement, the white throne judgment, and tabernacles. Yahweh comes down and dwells with his people for all eternity. But again, we are now between Passover and Shavuot, waiting for the marriage covenant of the Lamb as given in Revelation and foreseen at Mount Sinai on Shavuot. The days between Passover and Shavuot represent the days the children of Israel journeyed from Egypt to Mount Sinai for the covenant. And that's where we're at today. We're currently on the journey to the mountain for the new covenant. Let me say that again. We're currently on the journey to the mountain for the new covenant. The cool thing is, this time around for the wedding, he takes us to Mount Zion, the heavenly Jerusalem. This is seen here in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 18 through 29. The words you see crossed out in this text are words that don't exist in the Greek text. It's important to note this because those added words in the English make everything appear to be past tense. However, the reality is, the Greek text shows it all to be future tense. Now, I know this is a lot of text for the screen here all at one time, but I need to show this so you can have the context all together. Now, when did this event of the earth shaking with darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to the voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them, happen? This all happened on Shavuot, right after Passover in Egypt. And verses 26 and 27 shows it's going to happen again. But that also shows it hasn't happened yet. Thus, it's all future tense. So just like those who were saved out of Egypt, headed to Mount Sinai for the marriage covenant, likewise with us. Salvation came at Passover with Yeshua's death and resurrection. And now we're on the journey to the wedding. After the wedding in the New Jerusalem, he takes us to Mount Sinai here on earth to spend his 1 year with his bride. This 1 year is instructed in the Torah as seen here in Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 5. In fact, there's evidence the marriage supper actually takes place at Mount Sinai here on earth, seen here in Luke chapter 13, verses 28 through 30. That time at Mount Sinai concludes with the Antichrist surrounding us for the Battle of Armageddon. Now, all of that being said, don't forget, Yeshua is the prophet likened unto Moses. Moses went up to the mountain for 40 days. The people thought he wasn't coming back. Yeshua has gone up into heaven, and he's been there for 2,000 years, 40 jubilees, and people are thinking he's not coming back. When Moses came back, he found many dancing around the golden calf. What will Yeshua find you doing when he comes back? What could be the golden calf of today? I believe it's very possible it could be the Ark of the Covenant. People will be rejoicing over the Ark of the Covenant that represents the covenant the people broke. Thus, it's the idol of jealousy, as Ezekiel said. If you haven't already, please see our teaching titled, What is the Idol of Jealousy? We'll link it below. 40 is a number of completion and testing. Thus, the last 2,000 years, 40 Jubilees, has been a time of testing and proving for believers all around the world. And now, these 40 Jubilees, which are 50-year counts, conclude at the end of the Feast of Weeks, a 50-day count. And don't forget, Yeshua said he'd raise us up on the last day. Could he have actually been directly talking about the last day to the 50-day count of Shavuot? These last 2,000 years also represent the 40 years when Yahweh removed those who rebelled and allowed the next generation under Joshua, which is imagery of Yeshua, into the Promised Land. The only difference this time around is that the time of rejection and admittance happens at the same moment, holding off judgment until the very last. As I noted in our previous teaching, Resurrection Day, this year, Shavuot is a month later on the calendar we follow, compared to the many other Hebrew calendars out there. All we ask is that you stay open and don't dismiss the Hebrew calendar we follow as foolishness. We all need to realize this timing is something everyone needs to keep in mind every calendar year. Well, that's all I have. Think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.